Good afternoon. Could I please ask that you adhere to social distancing and wear your masks? If not for COVID-19, then for the expected bad air quality that will come out from John's mouth this afternoon. Sorry, John, I love you really. A very warm welcome to the EV Cafe, the 13th edition. And for those of you that love data and statistics, that's 26 hours now with this lovely lot, and of course, this wonderful bunch of attendees. Thousands of you have walked through the door throughout the last 13 weeks, and we have had 40 or so very special guests come onto the show to share their knowledge with you. And you have all been wonderful, and today will be no different. We have 5 extra special guests on for you today. However, if this is your first time, if you are new to this, then an extra warm welcome. This show is all about you, the audience. And the only thing that we ask from you this afternoon is that you please make sure that you're comfortable, got yourself a locally sourced vegan latte or lunch, relax and join in with the discussion with us, the panelists, special guests and attendees through the use of the chat box. We would love to hear from you, so if you could share who you are and where you're from, then please do, and that would be extra lovely. Do ignore the chat box through presentations if it becomes too distracting. If you enjoy the show, then we would always appreciate a like, a share on LinkedIn. Heckling is always allowed. The EV Cafe is an opportunity to learn from the very special guests that we have on. But don't worry about taking notes, because this will all be recorded and Sarah Sloman does a lovely summary of the show at the very end and then posts it on LinkedIn. But if you have any questions, then please submit them through the Q&A tab, and we will endeavour to get them answered for you during the mailroom sections of the show. If you are, however, feeling brave and want to talk to us because we're all human beings, then please raise your virtual hand and we will take you off mute. Don't forget to join the EV Cafe group on LinkedIn, which is open 24/7. So before I get too excited and ahead of myself and start talking about the specials on the menus today, I would like to introduce to you our sofa panelists, starting with the head barista, Sarah Sloman, then the guy that supplies the coffee in his vans, Mr. Van Geek himself, Paul Kirby. Finally, Big JC, aka the keeper of time and his big clock, John Curtis. So they'll be joining me on the sofa panelists, and we'll be interviewing the special guests and also asking those questions on your behalf. And if you don't know me by now, then my name is Johnny Berry, and I'm a BEV driver of 6 years. And my goal is to help people, fleets, make that transition to BEV too, by whatever means necessary. And I'm here for the whole journey and ongoing support, hence creating this EV Cafe and doing various amounts of training webinars. As always, I'll be chairing the proceedings of today, keeping these guys in check mainly. We will also see my northern counterpart pop up from time to time, live from the sorting office in the mailroom, asking those all-important questions on your behalf to the panel and special guests. So, today's session is all about public sector and will include case studies from the key contacts highlighting how they made the transition to BEV, with examples for both car and LCV. They will share details of their experiences, including any challenges they face as a business throughout their journey, from procurement of the vehicles through to sourcing, funding of charging infrastructure and driver training, etc. This will be an excellent opportunity to learn from these key fleet managers who are going to share details of their experiences and also talk about the benefits of moving to BEV. So who are they? To begin, we will hear from Lloyd Allen from Gulch Low West Bristol City Council, followed by Gordon Manson, Energy Savings Trust in Scotland, and what they're doing in Scotland. And at approx 12:45, we will hear from Terry Pycroft, the fleet manager from Leeds City. His council has recently taken delivery of 122 Renault Kangoo ZE33 vans, with 102 to be used in the delivery of a wide range of services across the city, including property maintenance and civil enforcement, and the remaining 20 to be made to local businesses through its new EV trial scheme. I hope I got that right, Terry. At approximately 1:15, we will hear from Owen Pearce from Oxford Direct Services, and finally Vince Dignam, who's the Transport Group Manager of London City. So another jam-packed agenda for you, and so we kindly ask that the special guests please stick to their time and don't give John Curtis, aka Time Police, the satisfaction of sounding his comedy flute when your time is up. But before any of that, I would really like you to just listen to me babble on for 5 minutes more as I deliver some of the latest developments from the Renault Pro Plus range that only broke cover 10 days ago. It's not often I get a chance to present, but I would like to make the most of this opportunity and get you up to speed on our ELCV developments. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to announce our all-new Zoe van, enhancing our already very wide range of electric commercial vehicle product, ultimately giving us the widest offering than any other manufacturer. We believe that the all-new Zoe van delivers across what we think are 4 key elements. It is at the forefront of EV performance and range because it has the same R110 powerful motor, same charging solutions, 22 kilowatt AC, and the ability to take DC through CCS, and the same usable battery size of 52 kilowatt hours, giving a 245 miles called to WLTP than the passenger version. Because it derives from the car, it delivers car refinement with all the latest convenience technology and incorporates the latest safety features suitable for this segment of vehicle and type of customer, such as lane departure assist, etc. And the all-important load space. Well, there's an overall payload of 387 kilograms in the business specification, available in 1 cubic meter load space, which replaces the rear seats, 4 anchorage points to secure items down safely and securely, mesh bulkhead to protect the driver and passenger from the load, hard-wearing rubber flooring, reinforced load area compartment, and there is also a cover to hide the load for security. The van retains the rear doors of the passenger car to allow easier access to any items placed in the rear load space behind the front seats without having to lean over. Alongside the all-new Renault Zoe, we're pleased to launch the new Renault Master ZE 3.5 tonne model, which will be available on the panel van, chassis cab, and platform cab versions. This new version can provide an additional 375 kilograms of payload, bringing the model up to the benchmark of many of its ICE rivals. So as well as introducing another option for buyers alongside the established 3.1 tonne platform and panel van versions that we launched in 2018. So for an example, with the new chassis and an uplifting payload, this Master ZE you see on your screen is equipped with a 20 cubic meter large volume box and tail lift, and it still guarantees 1,000 kilograms of payload. We can also now offer a wide range of transformations to do more than just your Amazon deliveries in cities and urban environments. As a quick overview, there are 4 panel van versions ranging 9 to 13 cubic meters with a 1,490 kilogram payload. Then we have the platform cab with 1,740 kilograms payload before conversion, and as I say, the option to have a mono-construction body on the back giving 20 cubic meters. Perfect for the city and urban delivery solutions due to its low load seal. But now there is an incredible diverse choice from body box to drop size, as you can see on the screen. So our customers can do more in the cities and urban environments, ultimately targeting those all-important AMID illegal pollution level areas where 59% of us live in and breathe in. So let's go back to the cafe, but before we do, and before we start with our first guest, which will be Lloyd Allen, if any of you would like to learn more about these products, then I've put a poll up. And tick yes if you want us to make contact after this show about the latest developments in ELCV, and also for us to tell you where we're going to be with the vehicle for our roadshow. Over to you, Lloyd.
Put the t-shirt back on, Sarah.
Okay,
Thanks for
hopefully you can see my
Sarah.
screen. Okay, yeah, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we got it, Lloyd.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, really appreciate you guys inviting me on. I'm a big fan of the show, so it's a real pleasure to be here. You guys have been fantastic over the last sort of weeks and months. So yeah, thanks, really real pleasure to be here. So before I talk to you about Go Ultra Low West, I'm just going to give you a quick history of what we've been doing in terms of charge points in Bristol. Source West was a charging network that was created from about 2012 in Bristol, North Somerset, South Gloucestershire, Gloucestershire and Baines. And we had some good charge points and some not so good charge points. This is one of my favorites. This one became part of a bush and the owner didn't want anyone else to use it, so they put the charging cable in a post box. That got better when the building was refurbed and it became just somewhere in there. So this is an example of what we needed to really try to improve. So Q Go Ultra Low West 2016, we were one of the Go Ultra Low cities to get a grant from OLEV. We had £7 million to increase the uptake of electric vehicles, push the move towards electromobility. So that's 2016, and a big part of this work, alongside the other elements, was to expand and revamp the public charging network, including demonstration hubs, such as the one that is behind Sarah's screen, which will be going in North Somerset. So I arrived 2018 and sort of was immediately sort of part of a fantastic team, including Sarah at the time, and we've pushed on. So we essentially wanted to, I won't go through this in detail, but essentially we carried out, I was given a little bit of freedom, which is not often the case in local authorities, to really dive into the world of EV, understand what we needed to procure, work out how to procure it. We started with a framework, and then we came out with a supply agreement. We decided, in order to expand what we've got, we would rebrand and relaunch Source West. So Revive was born. Revive is our public charging network in the west of England. So this is Bristol, South Gloucestershire, Baines and North Somerset. So we launched Revive at the opening of the mini charging hub in Eastville Park in Bristol last October. And we've been building new charge points, having migrated the older charge points that were able to migrate, replacing those that weren't, and so on. So it's EV Cafe. So there's a picture of a Renault and there's a picture of an EV Cafe person. We set up our supply agreement with Siemens Mobility. Siemens also supplies rapid chargers. Alfen supplies with the fast chargers. They look a bit like this, but they're a bit bigger. And so we've decided we wanted to sort of reduce the range of charge points we had and make it easier to maintain in the future, make the look and feel a bit more uniform, and create one system, one network, one back office, one experience for users. So that's what we're trying to do. Ultimately, what we're doing sits amongst what's going on strategy-wise. So ultimately, as local authorities, we're there to ask people, do you need a car? Do you need to own a car to get around? If the answers to those questions are yes, then we're saying now's the time to get a ULEV. But what else are we doing? What's going on? So as I've mentioned, there's a lot of investment into transport infrastructure in and around, and electric vehicles play a key part in that. So we're really great. It's a really great team at Bristol. Bristol tends to like to go it alone, which is why the charging network we're doing is 100% owned and operated by the local councils, as opposed to being in a concession agreement, which is the case for the majority of other local authorities, which is understandable. Bristol tends to like to have a go. We've got clean air zones, as most people are aware. Bristol and Bath. Bristol's is very ambitious. We're actually going for a complete diesel ban, and that's being worked out. It's a very difficult thing to get right. And as I mentioned, we've got a sort of a low emission vehicle strategy going on as well. In addition to that, we're trying to influence local developer planning conditions. So if there's charge points going in on street and adopted highway, we want them to be exactly what we want them to be, and we want them to be part of Revive. So we're influencing we're fingers in as many pies as we can. In terms of charge points, we've got car club vehicles going in, and we've got 10 in operation at the moment. Sorry, so yeah, they're in operation. They're working quite well. We've got went back to OLEV for some further funding. We're putting in some taxi-only charge points. We narrowly missed out on some BEIS funding recently, but we're trying for everything out there. And there is something else which I wish I could tell you more about, but we are on the lookout for more opportunities to expand Revive using our existing supply. We're trying to also see about ways to connect landowners, their charge points to Revive, and we've got a few examples. And just finally, it would be remiss of me not to mention that our Bristol City Council's fleet, following in the footsteps of the North Somerset's fleet, are trying to electrify everything, and we're helping them with charge points to do that. So I think that's my 5 minutes, so I'll be able to take questions in a minute and later on as well. So sorry, that was a whistle-stop tour. Please feel free to ask questions and I'll expand wherever I can.
4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Oh! You've practiced, Lloyd, haven't you? You've practiced. Just as a gentle reminder for all of those 200 participants that are on here today, if you have any questions for any of the guest speakers, please stick them in the Q&A section of the Zoom. I can see there's one already on there. Before we go to Q&A, we're going to hear from Gordon Manson, from the other side of the, sorry, Sarah, from the other side of the country in Scotland. Hi, Gordon. Welcome to the EV Cafe.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. How you all doing? Good stuff.
Lloyd's
Okay, so
disappeared now, I think. Come back,
say
Lloyd.
again.
Lloyd's disappeared now off camera. Come back.
Oh no.
Stay for the questions afterwards. Okay, Gordon, over to you, mate.
1 second. Sorry, 1 second.
No worries. Sarah, go for it. Go for it whilst he sorts out his screen.
Oh, well, I was going to ask Lloyd.
Is
How
is
do
that
you
up?
see things? Have you done it? Oh, how do you see things
No.
evolving in the next 5 years in Bristol, Lloyd?
Next 5 years. Well, we want to finish Go Ultra Low West first and foremost. We've got some
That's
charge
next
points
year.
to put in. Beyond that, Go Ultra Low West was our kind of ticket to really getting our charge point infrastructure sorted out. And beyond that, we just want to add to it. If there's a way of adding other technology as well that helps with other charging solutions, maybe residential, we're looking at that as well. But it has to be the right solution, and it has to be the right charger in the right location. And
Gosh, what genius came up with that? I really don't know. Who was that?
I'm going to
Who was
just
that, Lloyd?
claim that forever. Credit Sarah Sloman. But essentially, we want to add to what we've got. Our first, our first option is to expand Revive, rather than adding lots of different systems for people to use, if possible. So we just want to make it the transition for people as much as possible. We also are aware that there's a need for en route commercial charging. There's a need to make sure that what is going in that's not ours is something that we can sort of push in the right way. Essentially, our aim is to see EV uptake. That's the advantage. Part of that is to create a sort of a sustaining network in Revive, but ultimately we want to see the move towards EV.
Right, you've
So-
done an amazing job. Your cabinet should be full of trophies, Lloyd. You're a
There's
local
more to
hero
do.
for sure.
More
Thanks,
taxis,
Lloyd, but-
more commerce, a lot.
We're
We'll come back
eating
later.
into Gordon's precious
Yeah,
time
yeah.
at the moment.
Over to you.
Doesn't look too happy.
You're still
Oh,
getting your
1 second. I'm
5
just still trying to share screen here. 1 second. Sorry.
You had it up at one point. You had it
Oh,
up
was
at
it
one
working?
point. Yeah, it was working. Yeah.
Okay, let's try again.
So Gordon's got 5 minutes plus 2 extra Scottish minutes from the
I'm
Scottish.
struggling here.
Gordon, you had it up. Had it up on full screen.
Yeah, 1
There we
second. I
go.
think I've got it now. I think I've got it.
There we go. It's coming up.
Got
Yeah,
it?
that's it. Full screen. All
Wow.
ready to go.
Got there in the end. Okay, so my name's Gordon Manson. I'm from the transport team at the Energy Saving Trust up in Edinburgh. Today I'm going to give you a kind of whistle-stop tour of one of the key funding programs that have been running in Scotland for the last 6 or 7 years, really helping public sector fleets switch to ultra-low emission or battery electric vehicles. And it's called Switched On Fleets. So, let's see if this, what's going on? Right, okay, so basically what is it? First of all, so Switched On Fleets, it's basically grant funding from Transport Scotland designed to help the public sector organisations. And basically the way this funding is designed is that it's designed to cover the difference in purchase price between an internal combustion engine vehicle and the battery electric vehicle equivalent, or 3 to 4 years worth of leasing costs. So it basically creates a no-brainer decision-making opportunity for the public sector in Scotland, and that was the concept behind it. This year, there's also funding available to support depot charging infrastructure as well. It's bound into the same package as well. But yeah, it's a really positive scheme, and it's, as I say, it's been running for a number of years. The key objectives of the scheme, as I said, is basically just to help local authorities and public sector organisations transition to zero-emission vehicles. It's obviously linked to the overall issue of tackling the climate emergency. And this has been laid out in some of the Scottish Government's key kind of ambitious targets that have been laid out in the last few years. And they do that annually under a programme for government document that's released every September. And last year's document outlined two of the key things that they're aiming to achieve, and that is to phase out the need for new petrol and diesel cars in the public sector fleet by 2025, and to do that for all the other remaining vehicles, so vans, HGVs, etc., by 2030. So there's some pretty ambitious targets there, and the overall objective from our side of things is to help rapidly transition that fleet to electric if we can. In terms of the history of the programme, just a few stats here in terms of what's happened to date. So as I say, we're moving into the 7th year of the Switched On Fleets funding programme. It was launched in 2014. Over the first couple of years, they supported about 240 vehicles across 50 organisations, and that had a budget of about £2.5 million. Afterwards, the following year, there was another 110 vehicles, an additional budget of 1.2 million. And there you can see in recent years, there's been a ramp up in funding. So the budget's increased in 2018-19 to 4.8 million, and that supported 728 vehicles. And then over last year, we've supported about 1,200 vehicles across 67 fleets. So it's basically, you can see there's a general trend in a ramping up in the funding and the number of vehicles that are being supported as well. In terms of some of the key highlights, we picked a few here. As I said, the funding is available right across Scotland. So there's 32 local authorities in Scotland, and all of them have access to funding to different extents. I've pulled out some of the ones that have adopted larger chunks of vehicles here, some with a slightly Renault slant as well, to help to make the guys happy today as well. So we've got South Lanarkshire Council here. They've received funding for 140 Renault Zoes. Edinburgh Council, they've transitioned their entire pool fleet to zero and ultra low emission vehicles using the funding as well. Renfrewshire Council out near Glasgow, they've received funding about 64 vehicles as well, so a big adoption there. And then over the last couple of years, we've had the emergency service fleets in Scotland adopting quite sizable chunks of vehicles as well. You've got the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service here. We've got a little picture of one of their Zoes, one of the wings at the front wing of the Zoe there. So they've taken 45 Renault Zoes, and you've got the Scottish Ambulance Service that are adopting about 50 ULEVs in the last year or two as well. So some big adoptions right across the board in the public sector in Scotland. In terms of what's happening this year, obviously the funding is continuing, and we're also offering some very kind of bespoke and in-depth advice through EST to public sector organisations. And that's designed to not only provide them with kind of guidance as to potential battery electric alternatives for fleet vehicles, whether they be cars or vans, but also looking to provide a bit more detailed charge point infrastructure support. And this is an area where there's probably a need for a bit more support in terms of the combinations of charge points might be required to support fleets of different sizes. And we're going to analyse, for example, the power supply going into different council depot sites and seeing what's available and what the best scenarios might be for applying charging infrastructure. So it's really just tailored hand-holding support that's been offered this year right across the board, across Scotland, and we're in the process of collecting and engaging with all the local authorities at the moment. We've seen some really positive engagement so far. So it's going to be quite an exciting year and hopefully some quite dramatic changes in the Scottish public sector fleets over the next 12 months to 2 years. And that's pretty much it from me. So.
Oh, God, 4 minutes and 57 seconds. You I was about to say to you, Gordon, dear chap, how long would you like? Just keep going. Just take over.
John, don't get too upset, mate. All right.
I'm beside myself here.
Go and stroke it.
So questions then from the panellists to the special guest, and then we'll ask Matthew live from the Marum to come on, because we've got 8 questions for you two from the audience. So who wants to go first before I ask Matthew to join? Paul, over to you.
Well, I have a question for Gordon. I suppose there's 2 sides to the question. And the first one is, why is there no support for maybe retail customers and small businesses basically in Scotland? It's public sector focused. Does it go beyond public sector? Do you see that happening in the future?
Yeah, well, actually, the program I've just discussed is one program that's purely focused on the public sector, but we are also delivering a lot of funding support directed at the private sector as well, and we have done for a number of years. We have the low carbon business loan available, so interest-free loan schemes available to businesses to make the switch to battery electric cars and vans, and that's been around for a number of years now, and they still can apply for that going forward as well. So yeah, we've had quite a lot of support for both private and public sector organisations for a number of years, not only advice and support, but also funding support, importantly, as well.
And I suppose the second part of that question is, why do you think it is that there's such a disparity in the way that the governments are supporting it in the different countries? And I particularly cite Scotland and England. There is none of that same support. It's all a lot more complicated and difficult, and the balance of the least cost is a brilliant idea. I know it's been around for a while, but why do you think that is?
I couldn't honestly say why there's been a slightly different approach taken north of the border than down in England. I can only praise the Scottish Government for being ambitious and having been so for a number of years now in terms of the amount, putting their money where their mouth is in terms of supporting the programmes, and they've really seen the benefit of that over the last few years. But yeah, it's just a very positive, ambitious approach that's been selected for Scotland, which is great for us. You know, it's good to be involved in.
Thank you. Sarah, I saw you had your hand up first.
I was like that. Never mind. So, Gordon, the numbers speak for themselves, but I'm curious to know, when you're issuing this impartial advice, what's the most common misconception that you still hear now from fleet operators?
In terms of misconceptions, I think there's still a bit of a challenge in making the case. We try and encourage fleet managers to consider the whole life costing of vehicles. Quite often people are put off by the upfront cost of purchase or lease, but we've spent a lot of time just working out what the full cost would be over the lifespan of that vehicle on fleet. So looking over 3, 4 years, 5-year lifespan of the vehicle, and that's where the electric vehicle stacks up financially over that longer period, when you've got the significant fuel savings, fuel maintenance cost savings over that period. And it's just making that case, so making that as clear as possible that there is ultimately the cheaper option in many cases to go for the battery electric option.
Oh, that sounds easy to overcome with good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
You're a bit quiet, Sarah. Over to you, John, and then we'll go to the mailroom.
I just have one for Lloyd, if you don't mind, John.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, Paul?
No, you go.
Are you sure, darling?
Yes, darling.
Oh, okay, thank you. Really, it's a question, I think, for both. Scotland has led the way and continues to lead the way, and people get a bit kind of, what about England? What about Wales? What about Northern Ireland? But actually, there's some really good stories in hotspots, areas like Bristol, that have taken the mantle and are delivering genuine change by investing. And it's really important that we don't lose sight of the brilliance that there is in local authorities where there's true leadership. And I think leadership is key in both Scotland and in Bristol, that there are individuals who've stood up and said, you know what, we know it might not be popular, we know it might not win votes, but if it saves lives, we're going to do it. Am I right? Is it leadership? Is that the thing that we need more than anything else?
Who's the question to, John?
Let's say Lloyd, because, you know, Gordon's got it nailed in many ways, because, you know, we've got the leadership in Scotland. We've got people who've stood up and said, here are the targets, bite me. And they've been doing it for many years. Is leadership key in your area, Lloyd?
Very. I think in Bristol, for example, although Go Ultra Low West is Bristol, South Gloucestershire, Bath and North East Somerset and North Somerset together, of which there is great working together, which has been absolutely key. There's been a great support in terms of senior management and also leadership. I have a very good rapport with cabinet colleagues, cabinet councillors, beg your pardon, in Bristol Council, and they're very kind of they love to get involved. They love to pitch ideas. They are not a blockage to us. But I think Bristol was very quick to declare a climate emergency. I think possibly we were the first local authority to do so. We have a very forward-thinking and ambitious and innovative leadership and parts of the council. And I'm aware that is something having liaised with counterparts from other local authorities around the country at many a conference. It became clear to me fairly early on that I'm full-time electric vehicle stuff. The other people that I am speaking to, they're perhaps a senior transport planner, an air quality officer, sustainable transport, and it's one of 8 things they do.
Yeah.
I've even got a colleague who's full-time, and we have colleagues in highways who are sort of, so Bristol has always given good support to the electric vehicle infrastructure work. So I've experienced that, but I know that that's not always the case because resources are not quite always the same across all local authorities, but leadership is key.
We have the opportunity, surely, to be pushing our politicians to deliver the change we need. So in areas where there is leadership, that's fabulous. Where we have those black spots where not much is going on, it falls to individuals, to groups, to people, to EV drivers, to badger, to push, to cajole their leadership to recognise that this is a genuine, serious issue, and it can be dealt with, and they only have to follow your lead, Scotland's lead, Nottingham's lead, and so on to deliver excellence.
Could I just briefly add, just as you rightly said, so Nottingham was the first port of call for me. There's a guy there who still takes my calls, but I used to call him at each stage of the project, say, what did you guys do here? And that's absolutely key. But I would say that we've had a good deal of support actually from OLEV. OLEV are very keen to help share the learning, and they're putting together events for us to share that on. They want to capture what's good practice. They will. So in terms of OLEV, I've had a very good experience with OLEV in terms of connecting that up, and also from the minister.
Thanks, Lloyd. Before we go to you, Paul, I just want to point out that Kevin Booker said that in the chat box that 100% of their fleet for Brecon Beacons will be EV by 2021. So it's definitely leading the way there. Well done, Kevin Booker. And Paul, just one last question from you, Paul, and a real snappy answer if I can ask whoever's answering that question.
Okay, so
to the mailroom section. We've got 15 questions.
Agree and disagree with John in that I agree we should definitely celebrate the great work that individuals are doing, but one of the key blockages, I think, to mass adoption by certainly companies and small businesses and individuals is the lack of clarity around what happens in different towns and cities. So, 63 different clean air zone plans. That strikes me as utter bonkers. So whatever we can do to kind of unify the approach, like Scotland, I think Scotland, great example of a country doing it in one go. Fab. Anyway, question to Lloyd. Fleet and vans. I know that tell me in a really brief moment what's going on with fleet and vans in the Bristol Go Ultra Low area.
So Bristol Council as an organisation is electrifying its own fleet, and that's been going on gradually. They so what we've done is we've connected up. We've realised that vans, cars need charge points. We have a supply agreement for charge points. Let's use that supply agreement for your charge points. So we've kind of, now that we've got that in place, we're able to get charge points in where they're needed. The ultimate aim from our own fleet is they are converting the fleet right now. What we are keen to do is there's a situation with the clean air zone, and there's a situation with commercial fleet operators thinking, I'm going to need to do something sooner rather than later. So we have I can't talk about it, but there's something in the pipeline where we're looking to provide a way to help make that transition slightly easier. Cool. But we are definitely got in mind there's a very real need for fleets, not just to have their own infrastructure and make their choices on the vehicles, but to be able to charge out and about.
So if I was Jeremy Paxman, I'd be after you for the scoop, but I won't. I'll be nice.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So we're not going to go live to the mailroom with MK because MK has been kicked off for whatever reason. So I'm going to take over his role. Oh no, he's back. He's back. Are you there, Matt?
I'm back. Sorry, I've had to move locations, but I am back.
Lots of questions.
Right, we need to be
lots
quick.
of questions.
We've got 7 minutes and we've got 18 questions. So snappy answers, everyone, please. If
Awesome.
if you don't get to answer them all, then answer them. Type your answer, please. That'd be great.
Right, there's 2 Zoe questions. Guys, I'll answer them personally after this. Lloyd, great summary. How has COVID impacted on your plans for delivery?
Yes and no. Anything where there's digging has downed tools, but we have been able to progress charge point infrastructure where we've just had to put electrics in. So I've been flat out since lockdown started. So the project work in the background carries on. So I've been very busy. I had this ambition to do all my filing. It hasn't happened. Where there's been groundworks, that's stopped, but it's picking back up. So we've experienced a few months delay.
Excellent. Any plans to implement charge points at Bristol schools and other local authority premises?
we've got public charge points at a number of local authority premises at the moment, the obvious ones, and everything, as far as I'm concerned, is an option. And I would look to see where there is options for whatever the needs are at that site, whether perhaps it's a school in a residential area, maybe the school would let up their car park for public use overnight, that kind of thing. Nothing is off the cards for me.
Brill, no problem whatsoever. Okay, Gordon.
Yeah.
Questions for Gordon. Where's the need for petrol and diesel cars before 2025?
Interesting point. You could argue that for public sector operators that it's pretty hard to make the case for petrol and diesel, given that the mileages are not massive, so quite a lot of them could go electric quite relatively easily. So I would say, yeah, as many as possible could probably go electric.
Excellent. What support is available for businesses through the EST?
As I kind of mentioned briefly earlier.
Yeah. Let's get rid of that one. Jobs are good. And sorry, I felt like my connection just went. I might have missed a little bit of what you said. Could this initiative be extended to groundworks equipment, diggers, etc.?
Well, we're always open to looking at new types of transport. So yeah, I mean, our support offering evolves year on year, so we probably will be looking at plant at some point. But I've just watched this space. There could well be support coming down on that front in the near future.
Cool. There's a couple of questions here from Diane Smith about what what support is available for private sector fleets. I think probably best bet, Diane, if you get hold of Gordon directly, because there is support available for private sector and also for private individuals.
Yeah.
So, are you giving support to operators to help them better manage EV vehicles, looking at how much vehicles charges are used, etc.? I know you do a lot of stuff with driver training and things like that as well, don't you, Gordon?
Yeah, we've been doing driver training for a long time, but yeah, this is going to be that key area we're developing this year and providing to local authorities will be, as I say, analysing how best to charge large fleets, like combination of chargers, types of chargers, maybe software to manage the distribution of power to vehicles and things. So we're going to collect that information and provide people with some good quality support on that front. And I think that's an area where local authorities need support, or any fleet operators need more support on the charge point strategy almost.
Brill. Are there public records to show how much individual local authorities are investing in EVs?
I'm sure that is publicly available information. It should be in the public sphere. We obviously we have full information on the number of vehicles that are being procured every year for each local authority. So I'm sure that is in the public domain. So it probably can be accessed. Yeah.
Cool.
Lloyd, do you know about that?
No, I was just thinking, pretty much every local authority funding application is more than likely to include an OLEV grant of some kind, whether it's on-street residential, whether it's Go Ultra Low. So I'd imagine, and I know that the Energy Saving Trust, they look after the on-street residential charge point grants. So I'm imagining any grant would include how much we're spending, how much match funding we're getting. So I'm imagining someone's got a spreadsheet somewhere. I've not seen it. I've not gone after it. I've sort of kept to what we're doing, but I can't imagine that would be that far away.
Yeah.
And last one out of here, really, for now. How big is the problem that many drivers take their vans home at night to homes that can't have chargers? That's just a general question overall, guys, I think, for everyone.
I think it's definitely something that needs to be looked at. And yeah, we're keen to it's one of the questions we put out to local authorities this year is to find out how big an issue that is for them. So we are going to find that out in the next month or two in terms of responses we get from the Scottish local authorities. But yeah, it is something that solutions will need to be found for that, compensating people for charging their own vehicles at home, or if they can't get a charger at home. It's definitely something that needs to be considered and solutions found for.
Yeah,
well, as we knew from previous sessions, if you are to be really clever about it, you'll make sure that the expenses claims go directly to the company, and that's what Meaner Energy wants to talk all about. So Meaner Energy is the one to look at for that.
Yeah, I think there was another question in the thing which I kind of wanted to ask myself was: are there case studies, or do you have public information that you guys publish or have available that people could draw upon to help convince, either because obviously you're leading by public sector, but private companies are going to be looking for this as well. So
Yeah, well, Energy Saving Trust definitely has that. We've got a back catalogue of case studies, so you can access that information on the Energy Saving Trust website. So I recommend people to do that, and that would be a mixture of public sector and private sector organisations that have had support and implemented vehicles in the past. So yeah, well worth having a look at that.
Is there a different one for Scotland versus England, or is it all on the same one?
The website covers both parts of the country, but you'll see very obviously the section that's under Scotland, but there's a general section for transport, which will be UK wide. I should mention that we do have, I think I noticed a comment about whether the support's available in England as well. And yeah, we do have a full team in England that provide very similar support to English public sector fleets, the local government support programme. I'll get hammered for not mentioning that already, but yes, so that my English counterparts do offer that support, extensive support to local authorities right across the board in England. So I would recommend they do touch base. And again, check out the EST website and select transport and then local government support programme for information on that as well.
Could I just briefly add to that? I think sharing information, sharing learning is common currency among local authorities, and it's certainly our approach. So for me, the most valuable information I've had is sometimes to hear it in a seminar session, but then the one-to-one networking and the learning from individuals has been invaluable. So I've taken that approach where other local authorities have approached us. I'll say, let's have a phone call. Let's talk about it. So I have this on my to-do list somewhere. Let's write it down, or Go Ultra Low West the movie or something. But I think that'd be brilliant. But I think it's sharing that information. It's not yet written down, but I talk to local authorities across the country about what we're doing and share information as well.
Thank you.
Right. John, last question before we
Yeah,
move
you're
on to
damn
the
right. Last question, because that's 7 minutes, my man.
show.
Bang on 7 minutes.
I just wanted to say that Rachel Warren from Nottingham City Council is absolutely outstanding. Another great resource, and she's put her email address in the chat box. Get it noted, get in touch, because there's lots of information and resource there that you can plug into, if you'll pardon the expression, and Paul's written it down. Good man.
Absolutely. All hail Nottingham, literally.
Right.
Brilliant.
So thank you, Lloyd and Gordon. Excellent presentation. So thanks for sharing. But we will say goodbye for now, for the time being, until 1:30, where we will have more time for questions. Until then, we'll also close the mailroom. Now it's time.
What was that?
What was
That
that?
was a really tiny charger. I love that little charger.
Elfin
Oh,
charge.
right.
Oh, I thought it was big. Yeah, I thought it was big in the background.
An Elfin double.
Perspective. But now it's time for the next speaker of the show, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Terry from Leeds City Council. Are you there, Terry? Welcome to the EV Cafe.
Welcome.
Wow.
Nice to see everybody.
Smart you are, Terry. You got a tie on. I think you're the first tie on the EV Cafe ever.
Yeah.
Well
Set a
done.
standard,
Making the
set a
effort.
standard, set a standard. That's my motto.
Would you like to go ahead and share your screen, Terry?
I'm going to try. Bear with me.
No problem.
Okay, here we go.
Look at that. Perfect.
How's that? So
Stage is
everybody
yours,
see that? So
Terry.
we're okay, yeah?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Obviously, that's me, Terry, Head of Fleet Services, Leeds City Council. I just wanted to take you through my journey, maybe just give you a little bit of a flavour of the role I do, and then leading into obviously the EV stuff and where we're at. Just give you a little bit of leading to the journey. So obviously that's my role, Head of Fleet. Within that role, I think Lloyd mentioned earlier, I've got multiple themes and multiple roles. So I'm the operator licence holder for the 200 heavy goods vehicle fleet on the council, plus the compliance, you could say, responsible for the remaining 1,000 vehicles as well. We do the works, SLAs and monitor all maintenance. We've got a team there, do the technical procurement from the facility, vehicle safety team. With a private MOT and ATF line. We've got obviously police to monitor the fuel, bunkered sites, so we supply all the fuels. Fleet replacement costs there, 50 million to replace the authorities' fleet at the moment, the current value. We were talking about the journey. Yeah, the journey started maybe just shy of 2016 with regards to EV vehicles anyway. We had a purge where I picked the low-hanging fruit. In 2016, the best mileage you could get were 50 mile of a vehicle that's kind of loaded, 50, 60 miles. So we picked off a a group of vehicles there that we could maybe, and got support from the director and the chief exec to replace them vehicles. But I think the key point here is, at the same time as we got these vehicles in, it was a big risk. Don't get me wrong, there was very little known about the vehicles at the time. We decided to put about 7 home charging pilots on. This is quite an interesting one. This is, a lot of authorities are interested in this information, and I'm quite happy to share it with anybody. We piloted 7 vehicles, picking off 7 operatives who already had vans. 1 or 2 of them were union employees as well. Obviously, these vehicles run through multiple services in the council. We mapped out a bit of an infrastructure for those vehicles, obviously. About 104 points went in throughout the civic estate. So that allowed vehicles to park up on site and charge. The remaining, obviously, 7 pilot home charging. Part of the home charging pilot was that the drivers had to have an existing vehicle, park off the highway, were engaged, would support the pilot itself and feed back into the pilot at the end. And obviously we engineered then a report after about a year in late 2017 that really had a lot of their feedback in from the drivers and what have you about how positive feedback it was. The vehicles worked really well. They enjoyed it. They changed the way of how they drove. Generally, very interested, and it helped to enable further work to go on. So what does it look like now? Well, there's a picture of there. You've got the 330 odd vehicles. That includes some Highways England fleet as well. We've got the approval to continue with the home charging rollout, which is using the Schneider, I think I've said that right, charging point. Obviously, we can take the data from the charging point, reimburse the individual per kilowatt what they've charged in the vehicle, and do that kind of automated. And obviously, a lot of that work's been done and prepared, and I'm quite happy to share again with the people that lessons learned. There's a further expansion of EV infrastructure so that some of the major sites, the depot at York Road's just been done at 18 points installed, and there's a further 1 or 2 other sites have already been established for some more EV infrastructure points going in. Construction mainly main area. Telematics is something I never had in the past, so we've started to do a telematics rollout of Masternaut in most of the fleet, and I think the Masternaut are engaged with us in looking at an opportunity, because I think we're going to need to manage parking bays now and charging points where they're going to make something like a notification where people leave a vehicle on when it's overcharged almost, because we're going to be needing bays. We need to police what we've got left in the civic estate. So this was just for sharing with any other local authority from, well, anybody really, but lessons learned. If I could put it down in a few items, it was you got to get the buy-in early doors. I think we all know that, and thankfully I did in Leeds. Excellent buy-in from the directors and chief exec. Don't forget that then we've got the climate emergency kind of helped to spearhead what we were doing, clean air zone and everything else. Obviously, you've got to get the right vehicle for the right job, so you get the right feedback from the operatives and the drivers. Identify the unions for an authority. There was they're the enablers, they're the people that help make it happen. Communication. You can never have enough communication, I don't think, with these chief officers and heads of service to get the buy-in. And I think there's a lot more appetite now than ever before for people to get onto these EVs. Educate and inform where you can. So we said we had one of the first vehicles that came in was a vehicle safety officer's van, and we driver assess every vehicle. Every driver coming in, or did do before COVID, every driver coming into the council would be assessed, and they'd have to be assessed in an EV van. So it kind of helps educate and reinforce what we're doing. And I think the last point on there is what I think Lloyd and 1 or 2 others have mentioned earlier. We're quite happy to share this stuff now. So that's my presentation.
John's getting really upset here.
What is going on today?
Oh dear.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Terry. Before we open up for the mailroom section, has anyone got any questions for Terry on the panel? Oh, we've got a couple hands raised. John,
JC,
you were first.
Terry, am I right in thinking that Leeds has this brilliant scheme where you can basically borrow an electric van if you're a local business?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, there's 44 vans available at the moment, or mixed vehicles. with another 30 due. So, yeah, in theory, if you're a business and that's already set up, unfortunately for COVID, it kind of knocked the legs under it, but it was established, comms were done, people have put the submissions in to claim these vehicles for so many months, whatever your use of them. That was to engage and, it was to kind of influence the local organisations around us.
Working? I mean, you're getting positive feedback from businesses?
Well, there was only a very small uptake before the COVID, which really was a shame.
Yeah.
But a lot of appetite. I do believe there was a lot of appetite for it before COVID hit.
Top man. Good. I'd love to see other areas doing that. I think it's inspiring, that stuff. Superb.
Yeah, thank you.
Sarah.
Speaking of inspiring, Terry, I think everyone would agree you definitely are. And I would love to know what local authorities can do to nurture people like you to come through the ranks and get stuff done.
Yeah, nurture's the right word, isn't it? I think it's it's in us, isn't it? I think it's in all transport people. I think, but it is all about the support, isn't it? And I think Leeds is get some of the forward-thinking authorities and some of the people that are prepared to really support you getting on the way. But they can do. Some of it's down to individuals as well and the teams you work with, isn't it? Support around me, a lot of support. None of this stuff, I couldn't do any of it without the team of people I've got around me. I might have this visionary, silly, wacky ideas, but without some of these people that make it happen. So I've got to thank them, Anta, for being where we are and having them conversations. So,
really inspiring. Over to you, Paul.
So John stole my question. I am genuinely interested in how that local business scheme works, because one of the things that just as an individual I've been trying to do is get closer to SMEs and the smaller business sectors, because I don't think they're getting the opportunity to think as far in advance as, say, public sector and larger fleets, because they don't have time. They're having to react. And I'm interested as to how you think you could widen or amplify that message to the SMEs, first of all.
Well, I think it might be somewhere to use this opportunity, isn't it? I'll get the person who's the lead officer of that kind of who can explain it much better, and maybe he'll have an opportunity on one of these meetings to come on and share that with you, and maybe talk through what they're doing. But it was all about the communications. Yeah.
That would be a great idea, and I think even if we can just take it offline and chat to them, as to how we can amplify that message, and also amplify it so Bristol, Bath, York, Harrogate, all of the whole nation kind of considers this. I know Highways England are doing something that they're supporting this, aren't they?
That's it. They are supporting it. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So it is I suppose it was a kind of Leeds idea, conception, and Highways England kind of bought into it on a shared vision, and they've actually, it's happening now. They've actually made it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So just and to finish off, what I was going to ask was, somebody's asked, Jason Criddle has asked in the questions at the side rather than the Q&A, can private individuals access the infrastructure that you've put in? Is that possible? I mean, I don't know, paid or unpaid or whatever, but is it possible?
No, on the main, I call my fleet infrastructure is obviously on most of my civic estate and personal people's homes. So it's their own, it's our kind of my EV infrastructure. But there is a lot of work in the council, a lot of work looking externally facing now, because I think Leeds is been preparing a lot and planning for this infrastructure to go in, and now I think you'll see it all kind of happening. But again, COVID hit, didn't it, and stopped all construction, it stopped home charging installs. But thankfully that's kind of settled down now, and people have got their heads around risk assessments and everything's started up again. So hopefully you'll see that happening as well. A lot of infrastructure going in, but not for my fleet. No, that's my fleet's on parking and charging. And I think that's going to be the bit of education we need to do in the future. Get drivers to charge the vehicle and take it off the bay, leave it for somebody else. That's the big one.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
That's
Terry, there's a couple of questions knocking about in the chat box, but one of them was really good. It's summarised was, how much did you have to pay for your connection costs at your depot, and how did you fund that?
Oh, well, we tend to, the low numbers, we tended to fund it just procurement and the OLED funding, some support on that. So
okay, good.
Basic charging points, basic buildings that you could actually do it on. the more bigger construction works had to be submitted by, that costing thousands of pounds now, some of the major infrastructure work. So we've had to do specific reports, specific work for funding for that. But again, thankfully, with the chief exec support and the director's support, it's been something that they've just made it happen.
That's
Excellent.
LCC funded, yeah.
Brilliant. Can I ask Matt to come live from the mailroom? We've got some questions building up in the Q&A.
You can. How
Are
you doing, Terry? All right?
Are you like that?
Right. Very, very quickly, we've just had a new sofa delivered. The feet were broken on it when it arrived. There's a big DFS bloke in the front room bashing a hammer, so I'm actually in the bedroom, yeah.
All right. You look like you're in workshop or somewhere there, building rental.
Oh, no, this is my mailroom, Terry.
All right.
There's this bloke behind me. I think he's from Leeds Council. He's stood there doing nothing.
Oh, hey, steady.
Terry, loads of questions for you, pal. Great to see you on here. Thanks very much for coming on. Now, so first question, how did you develop the business case for the transition and how did the economics work at scale?
Right, we did it, as been mentioned earlier in the meeting, we did the business case for the 5 or 6 years. So in Leeds, the vans were lifespan was 6 years. So we did the business case. For every vehicle we procured, we've had to do a business case for it. So over a 6-year window on a van, the type that we picked, we had to do the average spend, maintenance, fuel. I did that evaluation on it, and that's what sold it.
Cool.
Service, yeah.
You mentioned training drivers. Did this include technical and safety use regarding EVs and charging? Or is that simple? You don't need to teach them.
No, you didn't. Well, you didn't really need to teach them. But I will add, and I did forget to mention, all my engineers in workshops are just shy of 30 engineers have all had EV first level training as well. So, and they're going for level 3 this year. So that's the future aspiration.
Wow.
But I don't think they needed much about the vehicle knowledge, but they have given a basic instruction. Yeah. So when they do a driving assessment, they do have a walkabout and they kind of hand over to the vehicle. Yeah.
So Linda's asked, van sharing, how do you cover the insurance?
In van sharing, how do you mean? Well, I suppose the authority...
Your van trial scheme.
Oh, now that's one I maybe don't know about. I try and find out about the insurance side of things. I think they would have to have their own insurance when they came to take the vehicle away. But I could check and find out.
Terry, I think when I read about the scheme, I think that was the case. You just had to insure the vehicle or have it on your company insurance. Yeah.
Because the council, while it insures its own fleet, white fleet and buildings, what have you, won't do anything externally. So we support the local NHS with some EV vehicles, and we support the university with some EV vehicles and some maintenance. And they're the same; they have to insure them themselves.
Okay, cool. So how can we help the smaller district authorities who tend to operate predominantly in rural areas and who don't, in brackets, enjoy the pressures that city areas have due to air quality? So how do you think you can take the stuff that you've done and help sort of the more rural Yorkshire communities move forward? Do you do any work with any of the other Yorkshire authorities in the more rural areas, Terry?
Yes, but Harrogate has been Harrogate and various other local authorities have kind of asked us for information and for us to share some of that learning. And I think it's all about just getting the people to try the vehicles, basically, because I think it's life-changing anyway. So I think you just got to do it. And once you've done it, you get hooked.
Last one for you, Terry. What sort of reliability uptime are you experiencing for
one? Nice, easy one, this one. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. So the maintenance compared to the old diesel engine, doing services and maintenance, the vehicles coming in on an express servicing, half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, you're barely seeing the vehicles, to be honest. Maintenance very low, tyres. I think people drive them more eco-friendly as well.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Nice easy one, that one. Nice easy one
for you there, Terry, just to finish off.
That's all
guys, there's a couple other questions in there, but as I say, they're not sort of really super relevant. So, hang on. All in all, how much was the savings? That's just arrived. Terry, how much money are you saving?
Per vehicle?
Yeah.
If you take away the carbon emissions, I think on the first business case in 2016, over a 6-year life, with 3 or 4K saving per vehicle per annum.
Health. And that's so you've multiplied that by over 300 times now with the small vehicles, haven't you?
Yeah. But we're trying to capture them savings rather than re-utilize them in other EV areas.
Sorry, Terry, can we just be absolutely clear there? You said £3,000 per vehicle.
No, £3,000 over its 6-year window, 6-year life.
Oh, so per vehicle over 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So £500 a year.
Yeah.
So there you go. Saving
Still
money
really,
as well.
really strong.
And the carbon emissions, so that's the saving even without talking about the carbon emissions.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah, brilliant.
Amazing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Terry,
Right.
Can I just ask, why did it all start? What was the catalyst in Leeds that suddenly made everybody sit up and say, do you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to invest some time and effort in it.
But it start. I just think I just think there were just a few of us that had a real appetite to see the EVs work, to utilise them, to be honest. And then everything else just seemed to take it along, didn't it? We've got the carbon, the climate emergency, things like that, just kind of helped sweep it along. There's just one or two of us that just came up with it.
Typical Yorkshire humbleness. We liked it. We just thought we would.
Oh, we just have a go at it.
Yeah. It worked, didn't it?
We'll have a go.
It worked.
It's like Jeffrey Bycott going out and saying, well, let's have a bat.
Yeah,
we'll have a go. We'll have a bit of a go at that, yeah.
Brilliant. Right, that's it from the mailroom. Terry, I'll lovely leave you, and I look forward to coming and seeing you soon with that Zoe van.
You've got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. Thank you. Brilliant engagement. Thanks to the audience. If there's no more questions for now, then we will move on a bit ahead of our time. We will still have plenty of time later on for more questions, though. So that's it from Terry for the time being. Excellent job and truly inspiring there, Terry. So let's hear now from Oxford City, and then the wide variety of transport options from London City. So welcome to the EV Cafe, Owain and Vince. Are you there, Vince?
He's there. Oh, and there's Vince.
Good afternoon, both. Welcome. So, Owain, over to you. I know we're running a bit early, but it means that we've got a bit more time later on for question and answers. Please do keep that Q&A tab busy, keep the chat box busy, and then we'll get back to you. So over to you, Owain.
Whoosh! Owen's got the earphone.
I know. That's really good.
Ouch!
I have this thing. Go ahead, this.
I'm just expecting him to hold up two things and flag in an aeroplane.
We see it all, Owen.
Hi, right, yeah, so my name is Owen Pearce. I'm the transport manager at ODS. We have a fleet of about 330 vehicles, and that ranges across a multiple of different services. So waste, street cleansing, engineering and highways, car parks, and building services. So it's quite a varied fleet. So we've always been at the forefront of design and innovation, and we've been operating electric vehicles and alternative fuel vehicles for many years. But a big change was about a decade ago when EST did a fleet study for us, and that allowed us to create a pool fleet, effectively, of our existing vehicles, which majority of were electric. So that gave us about 10 electric across the fleet, plus 5 miscellaneous specialist vehicles. We operate on a capital replacement program with about a 7-year cycle. So that does unfortunately limit us as to when we can normally change vehicles. But we understood that EVs were going to be important. So we set ourselves a target about 4 years ago to increase our EV fleet by 5% each year, which theoretically only works out to about 1 to 2 vehicles. But then about 4 years ago, also the City Council announced the first zero emission zone within the city and potentially the country. And we sort of started planning for that. So the big opportunity for us came about a year or so ago when we put in an ESO project submission for about £1.1 million. The ESO is the Energy Super Hub, which has been discussed in previous EV cafes. Of that, we were awarded about £900,000, and this allowed us to rapidly expand our EVs and also carry out some specialist trials. However, part of that meant that we needed to do infrastructure. So we went through, and with some of that funding, we were able to do consultation, install some initial chargers for vehicles we had on order, and then create an award for future chargers. The company objective was set about a year ago, which was 25% of the fleet turned to EV by 2023. So a fairly ambitious target, especially with quite a variety of vehicles on the fleet. And so we did quick wins, which would be the cars and the small vans, moving those from diesel to EV, and then we started looking at the rest of the fleet in general. We also had the potential for turning a grey fleet into EVs. We have about 70 operatives who work for the building services, and they take their own vehicles onto site for our work. So we wanted to see if we could turn those into electric as well. Complications occurred though. We were also doing a new total operating model where we would actually drive directly to site and have parts delivered to site rather than operatives going to a warehouse and picking them up. Part of that meant that we could then do vehicle downsizing, so they wouldn't need as big a vehicle. So there was a number of different projects going on, and obviously a portion of these vehicles are taken home overnight. So that meant there was a difficulty in trying to resolve that. So we did a full fleet analysis for EV viability, and we had to carry out a number of staff surveys for adoption and acceptance across the employees, and come up with new HR policies for the business and the staff with responsibilities around the vehicles and the charging. Then we also had to identify suitable EVs in the market, suitable for the sizes that we were looking at. And we were struggling around the economic viability versus the target income of the business itself. So solutions, obviously I've mentioned them. The smaller vehicles were the priority. We were able to pick those up pretty quickly. And then we prioritised around any vehicles parked in the depot overnight. From the surveys, we identified early adopters and got those on board. And then we carried out a big infrastructure tender. We did some market analysis around other vehicles in the market, and then we did a financial modelling of diesel versus electric to see if the budgets would actually stack up against the costs. And we decided to actually defer the grey fleet as part of that. So the outcomes effectively were 40 new electric vehicles through the ESO project over the last couple of years, which gives us a fleet close to about 70 electric vehicles, which is now 20% of the fleet. So good to our targets. As you can see, quite a few of those were Renault. We did some specialists, so an RCV, a subcompact sweeper, and a JCB excavator. And then we've got some medium-sized vans and some tippers on order as well. We've installed 38 charging points across 4 depots, including one 50k rapid for use with our fleet plus external taxis. As I didn't mention, but we actually have our own maintenance workshop, which we operate out of our fleet and do servicing for private customers, corporate customers, and our own fleet. And that includes the Oxford taxi market. And then we have some home chargers planned as well. So from all that analysis, we've got excellent tools in place for future fleet analysis. Going for the future, we're looking at rebranding, hence there's no logos on those vehicles yet, but that's in progress. We're also looking at biomethane as an option, and we're hoping to exceed our 25% EV target. And also, where I mentioned about the workshop, we've actually been running an EV maintenance and servicing workshop for about 2 years now. Our staff are trained up to Bosch level 3, so we can operate our future growth and our external customers. And that's it.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Owen. That's great. Some lovely product in your fleet, Owen.
I had to give you a plug.
Apologies for the activity behind. So sorry if that was a distraction. Anyway.
That's okay. You knocked over the cardboard cutout, man, did you?
I did, yeah. I hadn't realised the cardboard cutout was actually off the platform, and the van was on the platform. So
Would you mind just giving us another angle of the camera? Oh, there we go. Look at that.
Oh,
where do you want it?
Amazing. Let's get a front end view, shall we? So now over to Vince, over to the capital, London City, and the wide variety of transport options they have. So welcome to the Cafe, Vince.
Hi everyone. Hopefully I can try and share this technology.
Yeah, give it a go, and
hopefully we'll give it a go.
Just so everyone knows that we did actually do a run through earlier this morning, but we do have some technical difficulties with some of the
rehearsals and everything. We're so professional.
we did do some preparations, yeah. So at the moment we can see your presentation view. So you can go to display settings.
Yeah, sorry.
And swap them around.
That's it. Swap.
That's it. Perfect.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Right. So as it says on there, I'm Vince Dignam, Business Performance and Transport Group Manager. The performance part is our client, the cleansing and waste contract for the city, which is our contractors, Veolia. I've been involved in various, I won't name them all now because I won't have time, I'll get shouted off if I carry on, but you can see all the things that I'm involved in there, and different working groups and chairman and everything else. I was part of the Palmark Institute, Palmark benching as well, Future Fleet Forum with LAPV. City of London is 1 square mile, 9,000 residents, 6,000 households between Westminster, Tower Hamlets, Camden and Islington. We're very diverse departments because as well as the square mile, we've got Epping Forest, City Commons, Heathrow Animal Reception Centre, Hampstead Heath, Tower Bridge, and everything else. So we're not just in that square mile, we've got vehicles all on the outlining departments and areas throughout London and Kent and Surrey as well. As you can see, we've got a very, very diverse fleet from Lord Mayor's coach vehicles, our highways vehicles, our boats. Just to touch on it, I'm not going to go into it too much, but we take all our waste to Energy from Waste from our depot in central London on the river. The only thing that goes by road is recycling at the moment because there's no outlet on the river, and we're actually looking at hybrid with our contractors, Corey, hybrid technology, tugs and boats for the future. The one that you can see on there, Londinium Free, is part of our markets and consumer protection enforcement team, and we're looking at hybrid on there in the future as well as the technology comes on. Right, so where we are, the new fit vehicles that we've got on the fleet, to say where we started our journey is with the new contract. We've got them mega cage vehicles, we've got the Electra, which I'll talk about a bit more in the next couple of slides. So how we've trialled all these vehicles as well. We've actually got the Tesla for our Lord Mayor and the taxis. So the mayoral fleet is totally electric and everything else now. So basically where we are, back in 2018, 2019, we procured, put our tender out for our cleansing and waste contract. And it was just, I was at a show one day and we were talking to NRG and Electra, Dennis Eagle and everyone else about there's no electric vehicles for the heavy goods vehicle sector. And born from that meeting about 5 years ago, we were the first people to trial this fully electric 26 ton, well, stroke 27 ton with its allowance, weight allowance in the city. And we trialled this back in 2018, stroke 19, and the type approval and everything else, and making tweaks to it to make it work properly. The transition for the drivers on the trial, I just hasten to add, because I know a lot of people have spoke about this in the past, was excellent. Very little training needed, and they took to it, you know, very, very easily. And the reason we tried this particular vehicle was in Smithfield Market, because that's where we were going to put the first, where we've just introduced the first clean air zone, zero emissions. So it fitted very well with all the publicity and trials of how we could go out to the market. So we did a lot of work with TfL and other institutes just to share all this information. And I'm quite willing to take, you know, emails or calls from anyone on this to talk about the future. So where this all started was we set up a transport coordinating group with procurement and all the different environmental health for air quality and everything else. And what we did, we come up with a responsible procurement strategy and policy, which was about air quality, but also it included the vehicles. And we set up what was passed from our chief exec all the way down, as people have alluded to earlier. It was very important for us in the early days, back 10 years ago, to get the adoption from our senior management and all our members. They've been brilliant, supported us all the way through this journey. But very, very early on, the first few vehicles that we trialled, the charge points and infrastructure was not a problem. But what we quickly learned was that the charging infrastructure for the type of heavy goods vehicle fleet that we were going to introduce, and the amount of future vehicles wasn't going to be sufficient. So we learned very hard lessons very early on. But we were very lucky because we worked with our surveyors department and our facilities management teams at all the different depots we had, and EDF Energy to come in and work out our strategy going forward. So part of all this, before we could actually roll everything out and procure our contract and everything else, we had to work out the costs. Now, the infrastructure costs was pretty sufficient. EDF agreed for the first part of the vehicle delivery that we could divert some extra power from a local substation, which was a low amount of money, around 50,000. I say low amount, it's quite a lot of money. Where we are at the present time, and it's all in our capital bid program and with reports with responsible procurement, and we've got sign off on it now, is having a new substation put in at our major operational depot in the centre of the city. So we've been doing all that sort of work, and the emphasis that I want to get across is it's not just about getting a vehicle and, you know, buying them, plugging them in. You've got to really do your homework, and I've heard that from Leeds, Terry at Leeds, up in Scotland and everything else. They've all had the same problems. So charge points, you know, with the early days, it was from £300 to £2,000 depending on them, but there's some of the costs there, as you can see, it's working out. And on the refuse trucks, we're working out over a 7-year at the moment that there'll be approximately work out cheaper when you take the maintenance costs off, the diesel costs off, and wear and tear and everything else basically. So where we are at the present time is we're just waiting for delivery with Veolia for our Electra. We're getting 5 19-ton narrow body Dennis Eagles, fully electric. We've had one down on test off the production line a couple of weeks ago. So that's all happening at the present time. And 126-ton for Smithfield Market. So we will be the first local authority to run household waste collections fully electric by the end of September, all going well and not too many teething problems along the way. So that's where we're going. And the other bit I'd like to say is there's 2 separate bits for us in the city. I know I'm near enough going to be slung off in a minute, but
Get on. off.
It's that panicking bit that I'm doing. I can't see anyone on the screen shimmering me at the moment. But there's two parts to this for us. Is our corporate fleet vehicles, and basically what the responsible procurement has said. We've got a hierarchy and the policy that no one can buy a petrol or diesel vehicle without a business case.
Wow.
There's no way anyone can get through. They've got to come through our group. No one can purchase it. And if anyone tries, procurement will block them when they raise the PO, if they try to sidestep it. We've got a big capital program that's been signed off by the chief exec and everyone. The hierarchy is electric first, hydrogen if that comes along, then hybrid, LPG, diesel and petrol. Well, diesel's right at the bottom of the hierarchy. As you know, and a lot of people will know, that some of our diverse fleet is very hard. The biggest part that really needs to come on board, I believe, that I've been lobbying manufacturers for, is the 4x4 pickup trucks like the Hiluxes, that side of it, because there's nothing quite coming through at the moment. That's where the gaps in the market are. We've got Nissan EMV200s, the LDVs. We've had the Renaults in as well, and we're looking at all them to procure them in the future as we need it. But the biggest thing that we did do right at the beginning of all this, as Owen alluded to at the EST overview of our whole fleet, was to look at how many vehicles we didn't need.
Yeah.
So what we done in the early stages, going from 2010 up to 2015, was had a holistic review with that report, and we got rid of a lot of vehicles. We ended up getting out of 250, we got rid of 100 vehicles that we didn't need and where people could share options. And then we started introducing in the electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles where we can. At the present time, our pool vehicles are all hybrid, but a lot of our fleet is transitioning to electric at the present time. So that's where we are. If this was one thought I'd like to leave you all with, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. It's a good journey. It's a good journey. We're pretty lucky because everyone wants to work with us, and we've been early adopters and innovators from the start. And the big key thing is get buy-in from the top people, because it makes it work easy. Thank you.
Top man, Vince.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Vince. Thank you very much, Owen. I can't believe that John didn't use his flute, though.
I know, it's just too
Every
good.
time he had to use it, he didn't use it. So before we go to questions from the panel, if any of the audience have questions for Owen and Vince or other special guests, then please stick them in the Q&A tab. Can I actually ask, in the next few minutes, that all the special guests turn their cameras back on for the last half an hour of the show as well? Because it's going to be quite busy on the screen, remember to raise your hand, not virtual hand, if you want to talk to stop us from crossing over each other. Okay. Who wants to ask the first question? Sarah, you were up first, then Paul, then John.
Always. Vince, I want to know more about your ambitions for September. So you're saying you'll be the first local authority to have household collection by Pure EV. Did I get that right? I'm scribbling notes all the time. Did I write that down correctly?
That is correct, Sarah. Yes.
Amazing.
We're going to be, all our household collections will be done by electric RCVs.
And that'll all go to the energy from waste?
Yeah, that'll all go down. Well, 90% of it will, as I explained. Most of it goes into our depot and down by barges and containers to our energy from waste plant at Corey and Belvedere.
Yeah.
There's a very, but it will be going to the Old Kent Road, which is the Viola for the recycling, but that'll be getting delivered by EV refuse vehicle direct.
So you've got such a tough challenge in London with air quality, like even just manoeuvring those, and the energy from waste itself can be quite controversial, although otherwise beneficial. So just wondered how you managed to get that one. That's great.
Yeah, so that's basically where we're going. Yeah.
Over to you, Paul.
Right. So first of all, I believe there will be an electric pickup potentially by Q1 next year. So maybe I'll tell you about it offline. But yeah, I had a brief chat from a Chinese manufacturer. So anyway,
I've heard about the one. An Irish company have been telling me about something that might be coming. It might be the same one, but I'll wait to see it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see it, definitely. But my question is about like Force Champions, sort of cascade the requirement for Force to other subcontractors, in a sense. Is that something, I mean, both to Owain and Vince really, and to any of the local council guys, is it something that you want to say, actually, if you're going to operate this contract for us or subcontract work for us, you must operate an electric vehicle? Is that something that is crossed your mind?
Well, what I like, the way I'll answer it first before anyone else does, I'll just quickly jump in there. We're in all our contracts that we're procuring, like the Veolia one that was started on April the 5th, 2019. It was in there that we want them to operate. So in our responsible procurement and our tenders, it is about operating electric vehicles. So we're promoting that. We're also promoting it, as you rightfully say, in our contracts through FORS, clocks, and everything else. So the TfL program that was set up, and Low City. So we are promoting that through our supply chain. And as we're a gold operator in FORS as a local authority, and we have been pushing that and championing it down through our supply chain.
That's fantastic news. Yeah.
Just before any more questions, we do have one of the audience members has raised their virtual hand, Phil Hunting. So I'm going to take him off mute. Might have brave enough to ask us a question live. Hello, Phil. Welcome to the EV Cafe.
Hi, I'll be honest, that was a mistake.
You got us all excited, Phil.
You're on now. Just ask something. Go for it. Give it to us.
I'll ask Owen a question then about the funding that he had. I think he was referring to the ESO project. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can you go into a little bit more about how that was obtained?
Great.
Yeah, so it was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. There was a big project in Oxford. It's for a super hub, so a massive, I think 10 megawatt power supply that will tap directly into the electricity grid and then power a certain side of Oxford for businesses. That sort of multi-million pound project had a number of off-sort streams with it, part of which was EV adoption. So we were able to tap into that and sort of apply for part of that funding to increase our fleet.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for that, Phil, even if it was a mistake. So over to you, John.
Owen, I've got a question for you. Oxford's well known as an area where cycling is king. Walking and cycling, active travel are really, really important. Do you find that there's a tension between your walking and cycling policies and bringing EVs onto the roads?
It's something we are working on at the moment. We've always been conscious of cycling. We do cycling awareness training amongst our drivers anyway, and we put in safety systems on the HGVs for cycling alerts. But it is going to be more prevalent when it comes to EVs, especially with mobile phones being sort of so addictive these days. People walk along, not paying attention, and a vehicle comes along that is silent. I have noticed that some of the vehicles now are starting to make noise. I think
yes.
I'm not sure if it's our vehicles themselves, but yeah, they are starting to. But it is something we are conscious of. We are constantly improving our training across the driving fleet and trying to make that aware across the city.
Yeah, it's always about education, mate. Absolutely right. Johnny, does
yes.
the Zoe make a noise?
Sorry, John?
Does the Zoe make a noise? Is it?
Yes, there's a ZE voice, what we call the ZE voice, an audible noise up to 18 miles an hour.
And it's on all the vans as well.
Which,
so,
yeah, it is, yeah. And you can turn it off if you see someone like John or someone you don't like.
But Johnny, here's a question though. Why does it not work in reverse?
I believe it does work in reverse in the
No,
Zoe,
it
but not so
doesn't.
much in the Kangoo. No.
It doesn't work in either.
Okay. Well, I think you're paying more attention when you're in reverse. So you're not like, no one's going to jump
People
out in front of
are.
you and be careful. Sorry. It's not like you're driving
People
down
are.
the road in reverse, Paul.
No, but when you're pulling out of a parking space, so literally it happened to me. You pull
Right,
out, you
okay.
start moving, nobody can hear you.
For our vans, Paul, we actually put white noise on.
Yeah.
But we don't
Okay.
on the cars at the moment.
Yeah,
We do
you-
have
that's a
reverse
really good
sensors on them,
solution.
so
Yeah.
We've done that a few times actually. Well, it's a cost of £150 for a switch for a white noise. So if they are working on campuses or where there's a lot of people, then they can put that on and it's a bit louder.
There may well be a vacancy for a van geek on our show. You have an orange T-shirt.
Oi, listen, I'm asking the questions that other people will ask. All right.
Can I
Get it
ask
real.
Matt from the mailroom to
the
come
boss.
online, because I've seen there's a few questions that are popping up. There was one thing that Dave Bushnell mentioned earlier on. He was wondering if we're happy to raise the VW broadcast yesterday, stating that the ID will only be available from retailers and Volkswagen Financial Services. So any other lease companies won't get any VW ID until mid-2021. So I thought I'll mention that on Dave Bushnell's behalf from Alphabet. Thanks for that, Dave.
I think it's a good point that Dave makes actually, because Polestar is proving difficult also. So I think the online model of Tesla's always proved difficult, but electric vehicles changing to the online model is a very retail focused initiative. I think it doesn't support fleets particularly, and does make it quite difficult to go through the traditional routes of leasecos, both big and small. In fact, it's impossible currently for small leasecos to order Polestar. So it really it's something that needs to be thought about for any manufacturer coming to market, is to be able to access the market as a whole and give everybody an equal opportunity when they're marketing their vehicles.
Do you think this is just a way of manufacturers managing supply, but also feeding their own dealership network so that they're able to support a model of retailing vehicles, which actually is a bit outdated now?
Well, it's interesting because the ID3 idea has really taken the responsibility away from the dealers, exceptional dealers can't be exceptional because they'll just be as good as the website.
I see.
So there's no real benefit now for dealers to be in operation as a sales tool. And Polestar have no dealer network. Tesla have no dealer network. There are others that are going to, so Arrival when they come won't have a dealer network.
Dealer dead? This is the question.
Any more questions from the panel before we go over to Matt from the mailroom?
No, let's get the mailroom on.
Yay.
Matt, how's it looking over there? In there?
It's looking better. It's looking better. Right. So, first question, and obviously we've got a few guys on who'll be able to answer this. Reference funding and grants. How long does the process usually take from start to receiving funds? And that's from Jason Criddle.
From our project, it was about 3 months for the a grant to actually go through, and then the funding was probably about 3 months beyond that, but that was because the dates were set for the actual project. But I think it varies depending on the stream that you go down.
Real. Steve Brunt has asked, Vince, you anticipate EV RCVs will operate more cost efficient. How have you factored in the capital cost of the vehicle within whole life cost when this is invariably 2 to 2.5 times greater than the diesel model?
How we've done it at the present time is with the manufacturer of the vehicle on the costs, what we spend on diesel over 30,000 miles a year, and savings on all the servicing costs and everything else. So that's how it's factored in at the moment. As you rightfully say, It's not an exact science at the moment because we don't know the hiccups we're going to find along the way and any extra charges. The only thing aside for that is for this particular the household, it was all procured through our contractor Veolia. So the cost has been passed on to us through the procurement, what we pay in the price for the contract, if that makes sense. So there would be more information that I'd have to give you and put you in touch with them to give you a specific answer for that, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense, pal. So with you saying that the procurement are pushing suppliers to use EVs, will London allow direct contractors to use the government charging infrastructure? Is the next question for you, Vince.
Yes, the first example I'll give you, the only thing I will say, the city are not putting a lot of on-street charging points because of the nature of the city, where we've got a few for taxis and a few on street, but mainly all our infrastructure is going to go into car parks for the public. But in our depots, yes, for our direct contractors, like the one in the operational for the cleansing and waste, we're providing them the power and they fit the infrastructure for the charging of their vehicles in there. We're allowing them to use it.
Brill. And last one for you, Vince. Can you convince other London boroughs to do similar? Is there a top-down directive and funding, or is each borough separate?
There's the funding for, like everyone's, from government, what's out there at the present time. There's nothing specific for London. There are different things from the Mayor's office that come out from time to time. We are working, the 32 London boroughs are working pretty closely together, and we've got a group called Alto where we share quite a lot of information, and that they don't need a lot of convincing. They're all trying to do it because they're all trying to meet the clean air zones and the air quality. So they're all looking at the same way of doing it. So a lot of them are coming where they can, but it is the hurdles as well, like the infrastructure and getting everyone in on the costs. But the feedback I've had from quite a lot of people is they've got to try and do it from their chief execs and councillors.
Right. Brilliant. So I guess this one then goes to all the guys overall, to Owen, Terry, Vince, Lloyd. How do your councils determine where charge points are required? Anyone want to take that one on first?
We've got two. Sorry, Lloyd, go for it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So we started off with some recommendations that came from a bit of initial research carried out for the Go Ultra Low West program by Cenex and the Energy Saving Trust, which looked at a number of destinations with some criteria. What we did then was we built on a set of criteria that was used to determine where the hubs should go. We then developed that into a further set of, I think, got 11 different criteria, and we've weighted it to say what's the most important in those different situations. So we bring in site selections which are our own or from the public. We chuck the ones in after a quick sift to say, let's look at this one. We then score it, then determine whether it's fast, rapid, or both. And since then, we've developed that further to say, what's the criteria for taxi only charging? What would be the criteria for what suits commercial vehicles? I remember there was a question earlier on about, planning in the size for big vehicles when putting charge points in and so on. So we've specifically set out criteria, and we've weighted them accordingly, depending on what the type of charge point and who it's for. So we've taken a kind of detailed approach to this, and we incorporate data to look at, for example, where we know in Bristol where there's areas where there's a lack of off-street parking. So we know in Bristol that's to the tune of almost 40% of residents don't have access to off-street parking, and in some areas that's a big chunk. You can see it. So that tells us that's a good area to put on-street residential parking or off-street residential parking solutions. So we take a detailed approach in Bristol.
Brilliant. Owen, what about yourself?
We're a bit more sort of open. We've got two sort of sides for that. Obviously, we've got our depots, and then we have our City Council Environmental Sustainment team, who have been running a project for probably 2-3 years now on implementing about 100 street chargers across the city. I think a fair portion of those have gone in. They've done consultation with locals, so it is a sort of a consultation exercise to identify sort of areas of take up on EVs and where the vehicles would be actually usable. And then we're also doing a third strand, which is around the car park, and working with the county council to possibly look at a wider range across Oxfordshire rather than just Oxford City. But we are working on the city council owned car parks as well.
Brilliant. Terry, same question to you. Did you read that? Did you get the question before?
Yeah, I did. I think,
cool.
Again, it's an easy one for me, this one, because most of the stuff, infrastructure that I put in has been around my civic estate. So it's my vehicles, depots, and depots where I know they're parking at night. So that's, but the Leeds authority-wide, they've done a lot of work with different surveys and obviously got the data from vehicle movements and that. So, but yeah, that's going live imminently. They kind of roll out that infrastructure. But I think I would like to answer that part of it because there's been a lot of work on the surveys done on that, and the taxi ranks and parking and the new infrastructure for the city centre at Leeds is it's all part of the planning there, I think, at the moment.
And what about yourself, Vince?
Sorry, I did lose connection, so I didn't hear the question.
No.
Sorry.
The question was, Vince, is how do you as a council or a local authority decide where you're putting your charging points?
Basically, we've got our planning team, and we work with them and TfL, Transport for London, and the government, and it's through our planning, and we have to submit any things that we need for our real estate as well. So we've Leeds, we've surveyed all our sites where we can put charging and what we need to do. But for the structure for the public, that will only be in car parks. And as I said earlier, we've got some on street for the taxis, specialist areas, and it's all down to the sides of our streets, really. And it's even more so now because of COVID. We've put a lot of social distancing measures in place, which reduces the footway space as well.
Right, brilliant. So, Terry, a question for you from Phil Hunting. Did you ever have any issues with electrical capacity at your sites to charge your fleet? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yes, we did. I think that's one of the, on the presentations I've done it before at APSI and one or two others is, we found one or two vans on any site is fine. One or two, maybe up to 6 vehicles in charge. Any more than that, we had infrastructure issues. It wasn't infrastructure around the building. It was actually from the highway into the building. So that's where one of the depots I just mentioned to you that's having some major infrastructure work is having to have a substation. It's having to have a new power line brought in and a substation put into that work. So there has been some sites you just can't utilise, but others that have got low power supply, we've used the managed charging systems where it picks vehicles off, doesn't it, depending on what charge they've got in them. Just gives you a little bit more scope, that's all, but not much. And obviously we're looking at V2G charging pilot, and it rides over the vehicle, sits on the charging point as well. We're some of that as well, I think, at the moment.
Induction charging.
Induction, that's him.
Induction, lad, that's what I was thinking.
I need to do more homework on that, don't I?
Well, funnily enough, Terry, Renault did a test with it about 5 years ago, and we actually managed to get a Kangoo to charge while it were doing 60 kilometres an hour, and it were pulling more charge than it was losing.
Right.
I think it was pulling about 22 kilowatts of charge it was pulling to the induction. There's a video on it. I'll send it over.
Send it over. That will help.
So, do the guests... Sorry, Paul.
I was interested. You said it was pulling 22 kilowatts of charge.
Yeah.
But it's only got a 7 kilowatt onboard charger.
This was through induction charging, so it was slightly different. There's a video. I know they only do 7 kilowatts normally, but as I said, I think this was particularly a test van that they'd built for the job, Paul.
Can I just say
it's a shame they've not managed to get it to market.
We've got an attendee that might want to add to this. So John McMinn has got his virtual hand up. I don't know if that's another mistake. Hopefully not.
Oh, hopefully it is.
No, hopefully it isn't. He's a good van man. If it's John McMinn.
Hello, John.
Hello.
You need to take yourself off mute, mate.
Hi, John.
Perhaps it was a mistake and he doesn't want to talk.
Sound that way. Sound that way.
No, come on, John McMinn. We want you to talk.
We're
He has still got his hand raised, so.
We're actually willing it to start. Come on. Let's all join hands and try and contact the living.
Okay, I'll leave him. I'll leave him for a second. If he does want to speak, he can interrupt. That's no
Take
problem.
yourself off mute, John.
In John, Earth to John.
So, any last? We've got 10 minutes. So, is there any last words from the panel? Any last questions for the special guests? Sarah, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I want to hear about this all-electric refuse truck trial, particularly in relation, Owen, to your narrow cobbled streets. Can you tell us a bit more about it? How long was it? Are you pleased? Have you got more to come?
So we've done the Dennis eCollect trial last week, and it was a really good success. It went into the locations we want. The charging was perfectly fine for the required rounds that we're going to do. So, I mean, the biggest stumbling block we've had is around the power for the depot. But we've managed to increase the load on the servers, upgrading the fuse in the substation. So we can actually do that, and potentially we might actually be looking at a second vehicle now based on the trial. So we haven't trialed the Electra yet. That's the one we're outstanding, hoping to trial. Again, that would be the Electra on the Dennis narrow chassis, because that's what we have to go with pretty much.
Sounds like you're going to have to swap notes with Vince a lot there and see which ones are the best.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Oh.
I just have a question. Again, I guess all the local councils. We've seen recently the launch of the EAV cargo bike. Is that something that you see working for the public sector? I know that the private sector are beginning to invest in it, and there's certainly last mile delivery. But do you see any use for that within your operations?
I'll quickly jump in. We've been looking at it for some of our cleansing operation. We're looking at getting a grant to trial one to do our cycle lanes, to clean our cycle lanes.
Oh, brilliant.
So we're looking at ideas like that. But the city have our transportation team who've put a policy out, have been working with all the local businesses in the city that do deliveries. We're doing quite a lot of e-cargo bikes in the city at the present time. So it's quite big on our agenda and with TfL at the present time.
Okay.
And they're well utilised in the city.
And what about maybe any share schemes? Sorry, Owen, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the similar sort of analysis. I think cargo bikes are a little more limited on what we can utilise them for, but certainly electric bikes, we're putting those into our pool fleet, and that's got a good take up so far. In particular, where the city centre is limited by bus cameras or just the traffic. If the operatives need to get into the city centre from one of the outstanding depots, it's a hell of a lot quicker.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Excellent. So any other questions before we wrap up? John, last question.
Very quickly, few words answers to all the people who've joined us today. If you had a magic wand and you could get anything for your area to improve EV take-up, what would it be? And it can't be more money.
That was my answer.
Sarah.
More hands on deck, more people, more trained people who know what they're doing, working with teams. Everyone's so overstretched. One of the things I really value for local authority employees is most of them are doing 3 people's jobs and other jobs on top, and they're still expected to deliver this stuff. So although we can't say more money, we need more money for more people.
Yes.
Partnerships.
Exactly. I think people need to share more, and I think we need more groups like this. And I just wanted to say thanks for inviting us, because this is really good. And the reason it's good is because you've got all like-minded people that want to do the right thing and push forward. And I'm a great believer is not reinventing the wheel. Anyone can use what we've done, and hopefully we can use anything you've done, and that'll help us all to get where we need to. And that's my motto of the day. Thank you all.
Oh, lovely.
Thanks, Vince. Lloyd?
Yeah, just to really add to that, more resources, more funding. I think where we've experienced sort of not being able to progress everything as quick as we want because we just haven't got enough people. But there's a lot of people that tell us if there were more charge points in the ground, then I would feel more confident to use it. I know there's a big argument around changing behaviour and around people will get used to certain charges when they see enough of certain charges. It is the right charger in the right place, but that we do need more funding to put more in. I think there's some helpful studies out there. There's some perhaps slightly less helpful stats around how certain cities top certain league tables, not particularly helpful. Essentially what people are telling us is that we need more charge points. So funding. Sorry to be boring there, but it's
it's okay. It's okay.
So I think I've got a few words: simplicity, education, collaboration, and certainty. So, you know, there's a lot of kind of vagueness around how the future will go from, you know, government and things like that. So a good 5-year plan, collaboration, simplicity, and education.
Perfect.
I spoke to you when you come down to see. Could I just add that I think from what I've learned from COVID, if we could do as much as we've done in COVID to try and get over that and work together and collaborate in the EV market, I think we could get a lot quicker progress collaboratively.
Hell yeah.
Excellent. I just want to, we've got 5 minutes, so I just want to finish off by saying on behalf of the panel and of course our esteemed guests that we really have appreciated those of you that have taken your time out today to listen to us, especially those loyal attendees. Don't forget to get your stamp booked. For me, it's been really interesting, inspiring, and great to see all the engagement to the point where I couldn't even get a question in. Special guests, you've been fantastic. But can I ask that you join the EV Cafe group? So, like me, if we have questions, they can be asked there. And if you can share your slides on the EV Cafe group, I'm sure a lot of people want to see them, especially those that might have missed. In the background, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel for the recordings. Share the EV Cafe if you enjoyed today. And as John likes to say, if you could think about a doubting Thomas for maybe the 26th of August, the session on the 26th of August. So we are going to, so stick this in your calendar, as this will be a special episode where we're live streaming all together from the Electric Vehicle Experience Centre in Milton Keynes, and we'll be busting myths for 2 hours. What better place to do it than the Milton Keynes Electric Vehicle Experience Centre? So that's the challenge, to bring a doubting Thomas to that particular episode on the 26th. And then Matt's got his hand up. Would you like to say some last words?
Just wanted to remind people, next week, the 4th, 5th and 6th of August, the Zoe van will be in Scotland. Woohoo. On the 4th, we will be at Parks East Kilbride. On the 5th, we'll be at Arnold Clark Hillington. And on the 6th, we'll be at Evans Halshaw in Edinburgh. The following week, on the Tuesday, it will be in Dundee. The Wednesday, it will be in Specialist Cars in Aberdeen. And then on the Thursday, Arnold Clark in Inverness. If you would like to come and see it, please hit me up on LinkedIn. As I say, I'm more than happy to show you around the vehicle. I'll be there the first week, and then my colleague Ian Mills will be there on the second week. So if you want to come and see it, please give me a shout. Thanks, Johnny. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I've had my jabs, John. I've got my passport.
Well, on that, I better mention the road show in England. So 21st is London, 24th is Oxford, 25th and 26th is Milton Keynes Experience Centre. That's what we do in the show. So on that note, anyone else want to say anything in the last 2 minutes? No?
I've been really excited about the level of engagement that we've had with this group of people. I think it's fantastic, guys. I want to say a real thank you for your leadership and for the effort that you put in the transition to electric vehicles, from the big refuse vehicles, which nobody would have thought about that, right down to the e-cargo bikes in the different areas. I think fabulous effort. Great work, guys. Thank you, and thank you to everybody that's been watching today.
Brilliant. Well, you know what the last line is? Oh, John. Sorry, I missed you there.
Bless you, mate. I just wanted to very quickly say thank you to everybody who works in the public sector. It's very often a job that we take for granted, and we learned through COVID that those people who are least appreciated do the most important things. You guys do the most important things. You are our heroes. You are silent heroes very often.
And you sing Enrique Iglesias for us, John?
No. But thank you.
All right, lovely. Well, as the saying goes, if you have been,
thanks for watching.
Thanks all.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
See you all later.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.